Okay.
We can see your screen, yes.
Thank you very much. So great. Thanks for the introduction, Fabio. I'm really delighted to be here today to present the work that we've been doing to date and how it addresses some of the most challenging decisions in planning electric vehicle infrastructure rollout. I'm Joe. I'm the Director of Product here at Foundry, and we're an Oxford University company specializing in high-stakes applications of AI, where decisions have the potential to affect people's lives or at the scale of populations. And as a bit of background to Foundry, in case you've come across us in other spaces, we're founded out of the Machine Learning Research Group by two pioneers of the responsible machine learning space, Professor Stephen Roberts and Professor Mike Osborne. And we focus on complex, messy, and hard-hitting problems which affect people's lives. And we work both in the public and the private sectors. So I'm really keen to show you today how we're applying some of this know-how in the energy space, which leads me on to why I'm talking to you in the first place. Because we're in the business of applying machine learning know-how for high risk and complex world-changing problems. And we see the race to net zero, not really just as an honorable pursuit, but complicated, messy, and possibly one of the most important things that will happen this century. So we've spent a long time working with the team at Oxfordshire County Council, gaining a deep insight into their motivations and their user journeys and their current and future pain points. And I want to demonstrate to you the work that we've done that we also are rolling out nationwide too. So we know that building a future-first infrastructure is a challenge, estimating 10 million EVs in the UK by 2030 and potentially more than 400,000 charging points needed to support this. So this is going to be costly. And we know that the energy distribution in the EV space is incredibly complex. We've learned about the power dynamics at play and the different motivations behind decisioning, the fractured data availability, both open source and proprietary, and the long-term vision of players in this space. And we know that there are deadlines that are fast approaching, and that the decisions that we make now are going to affect communities for years and decades to come. Everyone's investing in trying to future-proof their piece of the puzzle all at the same time, and we've got to make progress on it now. So where does Foundry fit into the mix? Well, we're experts at working with messy real-world data, and we're also experts in creating intuitive and powerful software. And we're combining these into a tool which will enable our users, which are both local authorities and charge point operators, to interrogate the data that's available to them and to strategize from it. So some say that the answer to making the best planning decisions lies in the data that we have at our disposal. And to be honest, I would probably agree with them, but we know it's incomplete and we know it's fractured and we know that some of it is really old and some of it's not even there. And there are some fantastic initiatives, like we've mentioned today, the Meta Icebreaker 1 initiative, that have managed to aggregate a lot of it. And we have the hope that in somewhere in the midst of the data, there's something of value, which maybe provides the answer to this. And what has been tried so far, one of my hot topics at the moment is geospatial visualization, actually looking at the data, seeing what we know about a given region or a postcode or a district. And this can bring us halfway close, and it's super powerful. What things do you want to know about? Where the existing charge point assets lie, where the bus stops are, whether a house has a driveway or not, sometimes even which side of the street a lamppost is on. And seeing and interrogating this on a regional and a local level is really important, giving you a one-stop vantage point into the region that you're serving. So we're providing a tool that enables you to combine data from different sources and interrogate the data that's available to you, and crucially also to see where that data has come from and what it represents, how old it is, and how much you can trust it. We also want you to be able to create strategies for where you put your charge points and to be able to measure the success of your proposals against what matters to you. And we know that this is not just a compute and fix it problem. The human component in all of these decisions and the human context of how to support communities going forward is incredibly important. So if you have a target of converting a certain percentage of roads or a proportion of your council-owned car park spaces to EV charging stations, then where do you choose to put that infrastructure? And our tool provides some macro level refinement of assessing the viability of sites that you might consider for EV charge point placement. And crucially here also, we are enabling our users to add in human context too. We know that there's a huge wealth of information contained in the heads of the experts that work in the local authorities or the charge point operators, and our tool needs to harness that as well. But there is an extra layer here And how do you know if what you're planning hits the mark? And that's the key part, the evidence to support your strategy. So if you decide to put a charge point in these 25 places, and then in these 25 places, and maybe in the next 100 or 1,000 places, who's got the long lens on and what metrics are you trying to meet? And we know that there are competing motivations here. Of course there are, it's not unique particularly to this space. If you're a charge point operator and you have your eye on 25 sites, 9 times out of 10, or maybe 99 times out of 100, you're going to need each and every one of them to be profitable in a short amount of time, which is great for your business model. But how does that match with the motivations of the local authority that also oversees that area? And we know quite a lot of things in this space tend to favor more affluent areas, newer network infrastructure, higher availability of off-street parking, less crime, less air pollution, perhaps also lots of early adoption of EVs, which come at a higher price tag today. So what happens if we invest a lot of EV infrastructure in these areas? Well, we're running the risk of widening the chasm between accessibility to EV infrastructure using affluence as a proxy indicator. And we may introduce an undesirable feedback loop, unintentionally disadvantaging less affluent areas, leaving them without the EV investment that they need and deserve. So this is why we've put impact at the center of our solution, and an ability to see impact on your planning decisions, not just on the number of chargers, but as to how it will affect the people that you serve and drive investment in the areas that need it, ensuring a balanced and an equitable rollout. And we provide you with the evidence to back it up. So I am now going to actually give you a live demo of our tool and show how you can use it to aid your decision making. And I will swap now into the window where I have the tool up here. So I'm going to concentrate here on one of the strategies that's enabled in our tool. And this is about placing charge point infrastructure within car parks. Now, this might speak to the destination charging model, where you want to enable EV owners to charge while they use local amenities. But it also might account for some other community enablement if you situate charge point infrastructure in car parks in areas where there's a low availability of off-street parking. So let's dive in now. I'm going to show you how to start from scratch here. And I'm going to choose Oxfordshire, not just because this is where I'm actually talking to you from today, and this is where my Foundry is based, but this also represents where our partners in Oxfordshire County Council are based as well. So I'm going to create the project within Oxfordshire here. And what you're seeing immediately is all of the car parks and the charge points in Oxfordshire. This polygon here represents the boundary of Oxfordshire, and also in surrounding neighbourhoods as well. And you'll see a list of all the things that you can see on screen in here. Now, before I hone in to actually looking through some of these car parks, I want to also give you an idea of what's in here as well. You're seeing that we've got the existing charge point infrastructure here, and I can turn that on and off. But we've also got national data in here. We've got the population density stats, and this is available all over the country within England, Wales, and Scotland. We've also incorporated the deprivation statistics, and this comes from the National Indices of Deprivation. You've got overall deprivation, but you can also filter it by income, health, crime, or education as well. We've got the administrative county boundaries and also the DNO license areas here, so that you know who you're operating within. And we also have a number of different layers that I'll showcase you when we're closer in, including bus stops and stations and off-street parking availability. So I'm going to zoom back in here right now, and you get a kind of overview. All of these things you can interrogate, and as I said before, you know exactly where this data has come from, you know where we've sourced it, and this is available across the county and across nationwide as well. So what might you want to do next? Well, you might want to refine. I said we're doing some macro level refinement of sites that you might be interested in. And we have a number of different ways in which you can refine that. So you may want to do that based, as I said, this is the car park strategy. You may want to do that based on the car park space capacity. Maybe you only want to look for really gigantic car parks. You'll note here that there's only 6 car parks within Oxfordshire who have a capacity of over 1,000 spaces. And they're these ones here. And I might be really interested in those, so I'm going to add all of those to my project. This actually can be found in the project down here. We're going to look at that in a minute. I'm adding all of these sites, and you can see they've all been added to this project here. and but I might also want to filter by different things as well. So I might be interested in parking type, whether or not it's only open air or maybe underground multi-story, or maybe as Oxfordshire have trialed in certain areas, whether or not it's a park and ride environment as well. Those are specific to the sites that we're considering here. But then there are also some information about the EV maturity in the area as well. So we've got information on existing charge points. It may be the case that you only want to consider sites that don't have any EV charge points, either within them in this case. So this would filter out any sites that already had charge points within them, or any sites that have charge points within a 400-meter or 5-minute locus of walking. And so that you can filter those out there as well. For certain areas, we can compute the distance to the nearest substation, and you can use that, and that factors into your planning decisions as well. Also, with respect to the area, and this comes down to making the most equitable decisions as well, we have estimates of the local population. So you can immediately see, if I filter here, that this is only showcasing me sites that have an estimated local population, and that's again within the 400-meter or the 5-minute radius of 1,000 people. And you can see this is kind of concentrated in the terms that you would expect here. Or really importantly as well, and I'll showcase this in closer view, the off-street parking availability. And you'll see if we zoom in here, that actually if we look at the off-street parking availability, this is highlighting all of the buildings that we have predicted do not have access to a driveway. So you can both see them at the property level, but you can also use this as a calculation to filter your sites. And so what this is doing when we zoom out, this is showcasing me sites that are serving areas that particularly have a low availability. And of course, I can change this as well to refine those sites too. You might also want to look at different deprivation indices as well. And you may want to filter things based on your overall deprivation checking that you are managing your rollout equitably across your area, or you might be looking at things like crime deprivation as well, and things that really make a difference to your planning decisions. So let's have a look at this in kind of greater detail. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to look, we already see that two of these, in fact, sites have already been selected, and you can drill into these sites in particular detail. I'm going to take a look at this one here. This is the parking station at the Oxford Railway car park, and you can see immediately the data that's accessible to you about that particular site. So you know how many charges it's not got any at the moment. Total EV charges within 400 meters, and in fact, if I flick this on right now, you can see exactly where they are. So you know which they are. We also know who the operators are. You can dig into the information about this as well. And you know what the postcode is for it and its rated output. This is about the existing infrastructure. We also have the area stats. You can estimate the residential population, and crucially estimate the residential population compared to the properties without off-street parking as well. And we know that around this area, there's quite a high proportion of properties that don't have off-street parking. And you get that snapshot that I mentioned above, which is about the area demographics around that particular site. So I'm particularly interested in this one. I'm also going to add that to my project. One of the critical things I want to bring to your attention here is each of these sites have been given a potential score. And this is the modeling that we have running in the background here. And we are ranking these based on their potential for EV improvement. But rather than just giving you whether or not it's good or not, we actually wanted to provide some explanation as to why we arrived at that decision. So the explanation of this score for this particular car park is that there's a high estimated local population density. We know that there are multiple nearby amenities. We know you can't see it on the map here, but we know that there are loads of restaurants and other amenities in the area that people may use, including the train station, of course. And few nearby houses have off-street parking, plus it's a large car park size. That's given it a good ranking. If we zoom out here and we look at the one that I highlighted before, it has a different explanation of why it's been chosen. And again, if we kind of move around and we look at something that maybe has a medium ranking here, It's been ranked in this way because it's a large car park size and there are a few competing charge points nearby. However, it's got a low estimated local population density and most nearby houses have off-street parking. So you may want to factor that in your decisions. That doesn't just exclude you from looking in places like urban environments too. We have this rolled out across the county. And one of the interesting features that I want to talk about is that we also have Street View. So actually, if you want to have a look in here and see the site in particular that you're looking at, you know exactly where it is and you can investigate. You can do that desktop evaluation based on both the data that you have at your disposal, but also actually looking at that site. I might want to add that to my project as well. So once I've gone through and I've looked at some potential sites in here, I'm actually going to go into my project and I see this at a glance of the ones I've selected. I can go back into the map if I want to, but you can start planning your infrastructure here. So I can add a couple of rapid chargers. You can see my key performance indicators changing here. Orchard Centre car park already has 2 charging stations within it already. I know that they're here. But maybe I want to add another couple ones here, and equally here, I can just go through and do this, and I can build up a portfolio of this. When I get to a place that potentially has some connection, might cause connection problems. We are displaying warning signs that says that charge points in this area may have an unexpectedly high cost due to the lack of existing power infrastructure. And that's an inference we're making on the power infrastructure in those areas too. So you'll notice here that actually we're calculating some KPIs, and these are changing on the fly as I'm increasing the portfolio count of chargers within this, and the accessibility of population within 400 meters of a charge point within the county. Crucially also, though, we're looking at the population deprivation and splitting that out. I don't want to be unintentionally disadvantaging those that are from high deprivation areas. And also we want to see how this is changing. This one actually is not changing the KPIs of population without a driveway. It's not addressing those concerns. But also we have kind of a high level visibility of how we're increasing the proportion of car parks across the county that do have access to EV infrastructure. I just wanted to take you back out and show you actually other areas. This is a Stoke-on-Trent one, and you can see exactly the same problem domain here. If we go back to the project though, I've actually only added 1 charger per car park here, but you can see actually how this makes a huge difference in the access of the population within 400 meters of this charge point, and that actually you have increased that accessibility, and also largely you've increased accessibility for those who are in highly deprived areas as well. And this may be a target that you're trying to meet. Similarly here, we also have a set of 6 car parks. This is again within Telford and Wrekin actually, and within just adding those 6 individual charge points, you're already increasing that accessibility, and you're able to kind of see this and look at it on the fly. I should note that all of this is available to export, so you can export your locations. We're currently going to be working on export functionality to report as well. But that is kind of a flyby demonstration of what is in the tool. So I just wanted, before I finish and go to Q&A, I just wanted to tell you what's next. So we have the extension, as I said, we're dealing with the car park planning scenario at the moment, and we are working on getting the extension of this capability to the on-street workflow as well. So that is addressing residential neighborhoods that maybe have a high percentage of lack of off-street parking, and making sure that we have close to home charging solutions for them. We are also looking at the multi-user collaboration within the tool and enabling people to collaborate on projects as well. And of course, the export functionality that I mentioned before, like how to export things that would support important grant applications like the AUX and the levy schemes. And of course, this is a data competition after all, and we've got more data to ingest and refine and expose to our users as well. So where does this leave the discussion? Well, I showcased to you where we're at, but I know that this doesn't solve everybody's problems, and there are unique challenges from region to region and different pain points and different constraints, and we really want to learn more. So I wanted to reach out to you in our audience today with an ask. If what you have seen today in our demo and on this call is something that could be useful to the areas that you operate in or particular contacts that you have, then please do pass on our contact details. We're looking to gain real user feedback from the problem owners on how this tool can best aid them. And our friendly product team would love to speak to you about your workflows and decision making. So there are a couple of ways in which you can engage with us. You can drop us an email. Our email is on screen here, info@mindfoundry.ai, and you can sign up for a session with our product team who can get you hands-on in the tool. Scan the QR code, or the link is on screen here. And of course, if you think that this will make your life better and really help you get ahead in your planning, then do contact us about licensing information. So I do hope that you've enjoyed a whistle-stop tour through what we have built and what our motivations are here. And I think we're heading now into a Q&A, so let me know if you have any questions. I do also have on the call our technical lead, Rob, and our commercial lead, Mike, and we're very happy to answer any of the questions that you may have.
Whoa, thank you, Joanna. That was great. It was a brilliant demo. A great example of what explainable AI means, actually.
Thank you.
So we have 3 questions to start with in the chat. So the first one from Dave: have you started planning in flexibility potential to your tool, and maybe later perhaps vehicle to grid potential and so forth?
Yes, so I think the main motivation of the tool at the moment is that kind of macro level site planning. So there is an obvious extension to that, which is getting kind of utilization data and starting to work on the actual kind of infrastructure, the data that's coming from the current infrastructure. That's not something that's in tool at the moment, but that it has factored into discussions that we've had, certainly with a handful of Chargepoint operators, about getting greater visibility of usage on that data. But it's not something that we have in at the moment.
All right, but it's in the roadmap, let's say. Yeah. And how do you receive data sets and how a user can upload them into your tool?
Yes, so we're providing all of the data sets at the moment, and they are a mixture of both openly accessible data, including the connection to the Meta Icebreaker 1 initiative as well, and some other sourced open source data as well, and some proprietary data in tool as well. What I will say is that we are exposing all that for end users at the moment. As part of the project that is ongoing, we are exposing some of our data pipeline stuff, and that will be exposed externally too. But currently we are kind of managing the data pipeline and the data ingestion for the tool. Enabling kind of end user upload of data is something certainly that's on the future roadmap, but is not in tool at present.
Okay, thank you. And does the tool show the level of Chargepoint redundancy? For instance, how accessibility is impacted if a charger fails or is in use?
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. No, it doesn't. It doesn't currently at the moment. But by the same logic about the increasing kind of accessibility, you can extrapolate out to what that looks like if you have failed infrastructure in your area. That probably does extend down to whether or not a particular charger is in use as well. Again, that could be a future consideration. And the same or similar logic can apply to addressing that, but that's not the focus of what we've targeted our tool at the moment.
Right. And what was your approach to determining which factors affect the influence of planning decisions when creating new EV charging points?
That's a really great question. A lot of discussion with local authorities, and I will say we have an innovation group of about 7 different local authorities who are great, are super engaged, and talk us through the many complicated ways in which they decide about planning this EV infrastructure. And I will say that it does vary hugely from region to region. We know that different local authorities have many different concerns that factor into their planning decisions. And what we've done actually is we've tried to take parts of that, given the data that is available, that speak to different parts of it. And there are some interesting ones, like some local authorities are really interested in kind of having a unified chargepoint operator operating across their region. And some local authorities actually want a mixture. They kind of want to build in a resilience strategy for having a mixture of ChargePoint operators operating over their region. So that for us can be addressed by actually exposing to them which ChargePoint operators are operating where, and what the kind of split is on that, and that serves kind of both points. But I will say, as I did in the kind of a reach out, we are still very much wanting to engage with users and different regions and understanding the different decisions behind planning decisions that people care about, and how we can, using the data that is available, help them arrive at better decisions because of it.
Really great answer. Does these solutions stand alone, or is there a possibility to export the data in another GIS application?
So currently export, as I mentioned before, is you can export to CSV, and that's the location data of your kind of selected portfolio and all the things that you have decided throughout that. One of the other parts of that is exporting kind of report or kind of supportive information for applications, and that would largely capture quite a lot more than the CSV export of just the kind of geographic information about the sites, but also capture some of that human decisioning and the impact analysis that we're providing as well. Those are our two main targets at the moment for export.
All right. And okay. So in your roadmap, you will also provide the possibility to connect your application to other data applications, or this is out of scope for now?
As in through export, as in export the findings into them,
yes.
or ingest
Yes.
data from them?
So ingesting data, basically fetching data from your application into, fetching data from your application to, for instance, an API or.
Yeah, I think we're not doing that right now. I think we have a lot to learn. We identified those two principal targets for what export functionality is in the roadmap coming up, and that's over the next kind of 2 months. But we definitely want to learn more about what makes this more usable in the longer term, and that may include integration with other systems that are in operation too.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Joanna. We are at the end of our event. Well, thank you to all the presenters. And I would like to remind to the participants that this is only the first day of a 2-day event. Tomorrow we will have other 2 projects presenting. One led by advanced infrastructure around local area energy planning, and another one led by Urban Tide around fuel poverty. So I hope to see you tomorrow, and thank you, everyone.